Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome into my latest team preview video. I am going to be doing the Seattle Seahawks preview today. Kind of give you guys a rundown what you can expect if this is your first video of mine that you are watching. I'm gonna go over the head coach Pete Carroll, share my thoughts on him, take a look at the remaining cap space if they have any room to work with as far as maybe acquiring somebody off the market, maybe going to make a trade or giving one of their guys a pay raise, a contract extension prior to the season starting. And then I take a look at the offense, the defense, give my full overall feeling on this team as they head into the 2021 season. And then, of course, when I do go over the offensive side of the ball, I am giving it a little bit of a fantasy football perspective. Guys I'm trying to target, guys I'm trying to avoid, stuff like that. So yeah, if you've been watching all my videos, this is video number 23. So you're kind of used to the format at this point, but you never know who's tuning into one of my team preview videos for the first time. So let's just go ahead and dive into this. This is Pete Carroll. I don't know. He's like over a decade now as the head coach of Seattle, and he's been one of the most winning coaches in over this past decade. He's got that Super Bowl, but that was back in 2014, and it seems like the Seattle has struggled to go on a really deep postseason run more years than not. It seems like they can at least get into the big dance, but then they usually fall short, not even reaching the NFC Conference Championship game. So I guess that's what Coach Carroll is trying to get back to, right? Is not only get back to winning a Super Bowl, but at least get to that NFC Conference Championship game when you got a guy like Russell Wilson, and see if you can at least have a chance to crack into the big game at the end of the year. So, I mean, I understand there is some turmoil right now with Seattle. They definitely have dampened it down since January, but there's a lot of people wondering who's going to be on this team after the year between Russell Wilson and Coach Carroll. Obviously, Seahawks fans would probably lean towards Russell Wilson because Coach Carroll is getting up there in age, but you still got to give him respect as he's one of the best coaches in this league. I don't know about you guys, but how many times have I looked at this roster prior to the season starting over these last few years, and I'm like, oh, there's no way this team's going to win some games and make it to the playoffs. They prove me wrong every time, but to no surprise, they usually kind of get balanced over the last couple years in the first two rounds. So obviously, they want to just get at least on a deep run this year. I think that's the biggest goal for Seattle. And if they don't go on a deep run this year, there might be some changes coming down the road. But let's just go ahead and keep it moving then. Taking a look at the remaining cap space, Seattle's currently sitting at $8.1 million in cap space as they head into the year. So they definitely have some room to work with. Now, I'm going to go ahead and note this too. I pulled this from overthecap.com last night. Jamal Adams just signed that huge extension yesterday. And I'm going to be honest, I don't think that number is including any type of changes after the Jamal Adams extension. So they might actually have less money than that available. I could be wrong. Maybe that is what they have available, or maybe sometimes when they do work out those extensions, they still keep the salary cap hit remaining for this year the same, and then the salary cap hit will go up over these next 2 to 3 years. So I'm not positive they have 8.1 million, so they might not have that much to work with. Just keep that in mind. But they have a lot of notable guys that are entering a contract year on this team. Again, these are usually, if I list these guys, they've been at least on the team for 2 seasons. And then usually they're more of a projected starters. That means they're going to have a big role, so they don't either give these guys an extension or re-sign them at the end of the year. They're looking to fill those holes on the roster outside of one guy I listed just because he's a former first-round pick. But Dwayne Brown, start with him. He's a left tackle. It's been public now that he does want an extension. It sounds like he wants to finish his career in Seattle. I can understand the hesitation, though, from Seattle on him. He's like, 35, 36? He's missed multiple games throughout the years because of injuries. So do you want to give a guy that's in his late 30s, that's injury prone at this point, a good chunk of money? But maybe they can work out some type of 2 to 3 year extension that's team friendly, that's a win-win for both sides. Now, the one guy to watch is Quandre Diggs. They acquired him from Detroit, I think 2 years ago, and he's been nothing but a benefit to their defense ever since he joined. So obviously, I think they wouldn't mind keeping him in their future plans, but sometimes it comes down to how much money you want invested in that safety room. They just gave a lot of money to Jamal Adams. They got a guy like Marquis Blair, who's kind of like, he's been hurt the last couple of years, but he's kind of worked as a nickel back. He's got safety experience, so maybe do you start grooming Marquis Blair to replace Diggs at the end of the year? So that's somebody to watch. Now, Brandon Shell and Ethan Pochitz, they're on the starting line right now, but I think they're probably going to let them play out this year and see if they want to keep them in the future plans, depending on their play. Trey Flowers, the same thing with him. Who knows if he's still got to win the starting cornerback job, and then obviously he's got to improve his play to get some type of maybe contract offer at the end of the year. And then Rashad Penny is their former first-round pick. Obviously, I don't expect a contract extension for Rashad Penny, because he's been hurt and he's been such a disappointment, and they just gave Chris Carson money this past offseason. So Rashad Penny won't be on this team after this year. That's definitely a guarantee. And he's a name to watch, maybe either at cut down date and see if maybe he can go to a different place and maybe take advantage of a change of scenery, or if a team maybe loses a running back in the coming weeks, maybe a team can ship him and at least get some type of draft capital, some type of return on their investment on the first round pick, who's been a major disappointment since coming to Seattle. But yeah, that's let's keep it moving then. Moving on to the offensive preview. These are the projected starters per me from the Prospect Encyclopedia. And speaking of the Prospect Encyclopedia, that's out right now, guys. So I hope you guys can go order it. You can go order the Prospect Encyclopedia at prospectencyclopedia.com. They just, my boy Rob and Roy been working on that the last 2 weeks to get that pumped out for us. There was a slight delay. I can't get into the reason why, but it is out now. You can order the PDF for $15. Or if you want an individual team PDF, you can get it for just $1. So if you're watching this video, you're a Seahawks fan, you can go order it for $1. Now these are the projected starters pulled from that, but keep in mind, if you see a star next to any of the names on the projected starter list or over on the side with notable backups, that means they have a scouting report that I wrote up for the upcoming season on that player. So, and to keep in mind, to make Seattle's top 22 list, you have to be from the last 3 NFL draft classes. You have to have less than 12 regular season starts. There are some other qualifiers you can go check out at prospectencyclopedia.com, but these are guys that range anything from superstars in the future stars in the league to like core special team guys in the league. So go check it out. My boy Rob has made that thing so aesthetically pleasing. It's a great sight for your eyes to check out as you read about these future stars of the NFL. But let's just keep it moving though. I'm sure I'll promote that more and more throughout the coming weeks. But let's start with the quarterback position. Russell Wilson. Obviously, Russell Wilson is a top 5 quarterback in this league. He's been one of the most productive quarterbacks over this past, decade of football. And it's not going to stop anytime soon, especially with he started off with one of his better career years last year, and then he kind of hit a lull period. And that's why he missed out again on getting an MVP vote. But I'm a huge Russell Wilson fan, so I expect another huge year out of Russell. Now let's take a look at stats. He popped up in a number of stats that I collected this summer. He's actually currently tied for the 7th longest active streak of having at least 1 passing touchdown in a game. He's got 7 games in a row doing that. Now here are some stats since 2018 he popped up as. He's got tied for the most game-winning drives. He's got the 2nd most passing touchdowns. He's got the 2nd most comebacks. He's got the 3rd best passer rating. He's got the 5th most rushing yards among quarterbacks, the 6th most rushing yards per attempt. He's got the 7th most fantasy football points per game among quarterbacks. He's got the 9th most rushing yards per game, and he's got the 10th most passing yards. So yeah, he's a do-it-all quarterback. He can pick up first downs with his legs. He can pick you apart through the air. What is there not to love about Russell Wilson? And as far as like a fantasy quarterback, yeah, he's a plug-and-play quarterback you never have to really think about. Now, obviously, you do get worried if he has that little lull period like he did last year. But at the end of the day, at the quarterback position, he's averaging the 7th most points per game over the last 3 years among quarterbacks. So you're going to get at least a QB1 type of performance out of him when you look at the season as a whole. So he's a guy I never don't mind drafting because he also brings that high floor as a quarterback because of his rushing ability. And again, I think we're going to see another strong year out of Russell because I think they added like a guy like Dwayne Eskridge and a guy like Gerald Everett, which should help their passing attack. But moving it on to the running back position, Chris Carson, like I just mentioned earlier, he did just get an extension, so he's going to dominate the touches out of this Seattle backfield. He's actually got the fifth most rushing yards since 2018, so he's just a consistent guy that you can count on, that they count on. He's a rugged running back. He'll run you over. He's got the speed. They started utilizing him more in the passing attack last year, which you gotta love from the fantasy football angle. And he's just a guy in fantasy football that, most people, I don't know why he's for whatever reason, he's underrated among most people. So he's a guy where if you go get your RB1 in the first round, you can go get Chris Carson eventually in the round 2 or 3 as your RB2, and you got a nice solid RB1, RB2 punch, like a Christian McCaffrey, Chris Carson, Alvin Kamara, Chris Carson. Like, that's a nice little solid punch because he brings, he's a guy, he's going to be a consistent performer for you week in and week out. And then if anything were to happen, obviously depending if he's on the roster by the end of the month, but they still got Rashad Penny, like I mentioned. DJ Dallas is a guy I would keep my eyes on, just in case he were to end up getting a bigger role. And you can read his scouting report in the Prospect Encyclopedia. I'm gonna keep it moving though to the wide receivers. I think they got a unique trio this year with the addition of Dwayne Eskridge, because Dwayne Eskridge, just to talk on him really quick, he's got some really great speed to him, so he's going to help out stretch out the field. So if guys got their eyes on a DK Metcalf or a Tyler Lockett, all of a sudden they're not even going to realize that Dwayne Eskridge is running by them, and Russell Wilson's going to be able to take a deep shot for a big chunk play. So I think he's going to add a different element, and that's also going to help get the safety's eyes on him because of his speed, and that's going to open up things for the great route runner and Tyler Lockett, and it's going to open up things for the big explosive superstar and DK Metcalf. Now, speaking of those two wide receivers, those guys are absolute studs. They complement each other so well, because Tyler, he's kind of that smaller stature guy that can run the routes, that can get open, that's got really strong hands, and then DK Metcalf is that big burly Megatron-like wide receiver that not only has the great size and great catch radius, but he has the speed himself that he can blow by any cornerback on any given moment. So you gotta love what those two bring. And here's a stat on these both players. DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett are in a group of 8 players that have at least one season of 80 plus receptions, 1,000 plus yards, and 10 plus touchdowns since 2018. And then on Tyler Lockett, additionally with him, he actually has the 4th most receiving touchdowns among wide receivers since 2018. So Tyler Lockett is just a surefire fantasy football wide receiver. He's more that wide receiver 2 guy for me. And then if he, on any given week, if him and Russell are connecting, he's going to be able to give you wide receiver 1 numbers. Now, to me, DK is the guy I want. If you go back to my first YouTube video, I talk up year 3 wide receivers, and I talk up my man DK. For those that have followed me, for those that are good friends of mine, they know I was a huge DK Metcalf fan in the draft process. I loved his landing spot. I said this is going to work out great for him, and it has, and he keeps on blossoming every year. I mean, it was in his 2nd year he had that season that I just mentioned. One of the 8 players I've had a season like that since 2018. Entering year 3, so I think he's going to even have a better year. He's a guy where I don't care. I don't mind if I leave with him in the 2nd round. I really don't. I don't care if I'm drafting him above his ADP at that point if I don't feel like I can get him in the 3rd round. I think DK Metcalf's going to have an absolute big, huge season for Seattle, because like I said, I think Dwayne Eskridge is going to make life easier on him and Tyler, and help out Russell's passing ability. Now, the other guy I'm keeping my eye on too is Gerald Everett. He's coming in from the Rams. He's more of a receiving tight end. I really have always liked his talent. He just never really had an opportunity to see a week in and week out target load in Los Angeles, because they had Tyler Higbee, and of course they had their number of wide receivers that they had in the offense. But anytime he had a chance to shine, he usually took advantage of it. And now he enters, Seattle, where, I mean, I talked up Dwayne Eskridge, but other than that, like outside of DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, there's no surefire guy that's going to lead to be third in targets behind those two players. So if that happens to be Everett, he's like a borderline tight end one. I view him more as a tight end two right now, but let's just see how if his role can be consistent in Seattle. And then if it is, I mean, he might be a sneaky tight end play that you can grab in the double-digit rounds as you wrap up your draft. So just to keep an eye on him at the beginning of the season. I wouldn't count on him to be your fantasy tight end, but if he ends up getting that consistent target load, he's maybe finishing third in targets every week behind DK and Tyler, then all of a sudden you got a nice little solid tight end. Now there is another guy in the group that will work in the snaps. He's been sneakily productive for Seattle. He just has dealt with some injuries as well. But Will Dissly, he's actually got the 8th most yards per reception by a tight end since 2018 at 12.16. And it sounds like Kobe Parkinson, he got a little banged up in their practice, but it sounds like he was having a good camp so far, and he's got a report in the Prospect Encyclopedia. Again, I'm gonna be promoting that so much now that you can go purchase it. Now, taking a look at their line, obviously that was the big thing, the big storyline after the season. Russell wanted better protection. So what did they do? They did go trade for Gabe Jackson from the Raiders, who's been a very good guard. And I think him and Damian Lewis, who had a strong rookie season, can form a nice little guard combo. Ethan Pochitz is a solid center. So I do think the interior of this offensive line is much improved this year, because I think Damian's going to take that next step in his development, and Gabe Jackson's that veteran that not only is going to boost that interior of the line, he's going to help out a Damian Lewis learn the aspects of the game. Dwayne Brown, you just want him to stay healthy, and he's still a solid tackle at his point of his career. And then, like I said, Brandon Shell, he's solid. He'll get the job done. Overall, I think it's an improved line, but we got to see it happen on the field. But either way, I think Russell's going to have a little bit more time to scan the field and read the defenses to pick apart this year. Overall, I really like this offense on paper. I really like the top of the depth chart. My biggest concerns that definitely come to, like, hey, if DK Metcalf or Tyler Lockett have to miss any time because of injuries, they're going to be working in kind of guys that don't have much experience at the wide receiver position. And then on top of that too, their offensive line. If those, like I mentioned, I think the group is better this year. But if any of those guys deal with time, they're going to have to work in inexperienced guys on the offensive line, which can lead to troubles and Russell Wilson running for his life after the snap. But overall, it's the making of a good, solid offense that should be able to be like around that top 15 range. I'm not sure about top 10, but if Dwayne Eskridge does deliver as a rookie on his talent, maybe they can work their way at the back end of the top 10 offenses in the league. I'm going to keep it moving to the defense. We got the projected starters. Again, that's pulled from the Prospect Encyclopedia. That this is per me that I wrote up. Now, I do want to keep in mind, I want to let people know these projected starters, some of these lists, we submitted this all back at the beginning of July. So some of these may not be as updated now that we are, 2 weeks into training camp. But it gives you an idea who are some of the upper echelon players on the rosters. But starting with the defensive front, I think their defensive front in Seattle's is going to be solid, because I think it's not like they have a overwhelming superstar on the defensive front. But I think they have a number of guys that can work in the rotation, that have the versatility where they can be lined up inside, on the outside, and find ways to be stout against the run and create pressure. LJ Collier is steadily improved. He's a former first-round pick for them, but obviously they want to see him take the next step as a player, since they invested a day one pick into him. Poona Ford has been a great addition as an undrafted free agent. He's really came along for them. He eats up space in the middle of the defense. Carlos Dunlap, since they traded for him from Cincinnati, he's a guy that's got the size. He's older, but he can still create that pressure. And now that he's older, and he's got the size, you can kind of line him up sometimes in the inside on third and long situations. And then Alton Robinson's a guy I'm keeping my eyes on. He's a guy I'm watching for out of the book. I think he can take the next step. He's got great size. He's just got to work on his technique and his development. And then they still got Brian Maughan, Kerry Hyder that they can work in the rotation as well. And then taking a look at their linebacker position, Jordan Brooks is, their first round pick from last year. I thought he was coming along towards the back end of his rookie season, and I think he's going to be able to form a nice little tandem with their star linebacker, Bobby Wagner. Little stat on Bobby Wagner. Bobby Wagner actually has the 8th most solo tackles since 2018. He's got 251. Now the guy to watch is Darrell Taylor. He was a second round pick last year for them. He didn't play because of an injury, and they're trying to kind of find his role. It sounded like, when he originally came out of college, it looked like he was going to be more of like an edge rusher coming in because of his athleticism. But I know it was back. I got him projected as an outside linebacker starting because that's where Seattle was looking to test him out back in July. I'm not sure where he is back in June. I'm not sure where he is in his development at that stage, but he's got all the talent. He's going to have to shake off the rust of missing it last year because of his injury, and they just got to figure out what his exact role is in this in this defense. But I think he can work out the linebacker position, and then you can also put him up on the line too to help against the run, and then you could still utilize him as a pass rusher in those third and long type of situation. So he's a guy that could be an X factor, I think, of potentially in this defense if he comes on strong in year 2. Now the secondary is definitely not the no-fly zone anymore. They've made a lot of changes since those days. And one of the biggest things, and maybe even the biggest concern though about this defense, is their cornerback group. They brought in Ahkello Witherspoon from San Francisco. He's a solid cornerback. I'm not sure if he's going to be able to, contain like the DeAndre Hopkins of this division, the Robert Woods and, Debo Samuel or Brandon Ayuk. He's solid in what he does, but I don't know if you want, like, he's not really going to be like, I could shut down this side of my field type of corner in my opinion. So, and then you got Trey Flowers, who's solid. They also got DJ Reed and Trey Brown, who they drafted this year. And then Ugo Amadi, to me, is a very solid nickelback. I think he's good at that role, and he's got the versatility to kick back to safety if he needs to. I mentioned this name earlier too, Marquis Blair. I'm not sure where they're going to use him this year. He actually was their starting nickelback at the beginning of last year, and then he got hurt and missed the season. Ugo Amadi stepped in his role and kind of flourished. So I think they need to leave Ugo at that spot and actually kick back Marquis back to. I think they should use Marquis in a versatile role this year since they still got Quandre Diggs. I think they can use Marquis. They can maybe sometimes put him in the slot in coverage, maybe in like dime packages, and then they can also kick him back and maybe use him as a third safety on some packages. I think they should utilize his versatility to their benefit this year. So since they don't need to start him at nickel, they don't need to start him at free safety. And then taking a look at their safety tandem, it's one of the best, easily one of the best in the league. Quandary Diggs is a very underrated safety. He's actually tied for the fourth most interceptions since 2018. He just has a natural ability to find the ball. He's a very smart player. He's instinctive. He can come up and make the tackles. And I think he complements Jamal Adams really well. And speaking of Jamal Adams, just got his payday, so congrats to that guy. He's just a dog, man. That's what he is. Is he your traditional, like, I'm gonna sit back and be a coverage safety? No, but his skill set is so unique to what he does. He adds such a different element to the defense because you can line him up in the box. He's going to tag. Maybe outside, even if it's Derrick Henry. Yeah, I think Jamal Adams can come up and wrap up a Derrick Henry and bring him down. And then what the great thing about him is his ability to get sacks. He's basically kind of a sneaky premier edge rusher on this defense. I think I said that earlier, like about their defensive front. They don't really have a for sure guy. I guess I wasn't thinking about it. Yeah, they do have a for sure guy. His name is Jamal Adams. The guy had so many sacks last year. I should have wrote it down, but he broke some sack record last year. by a safety in like 6 games. It was crazy. So he's a guy that you can line up in the box. You could set him on blitz packages. He'll get the sacks. He'll strip the ball out of a quarterback's hands and take it for a touchdown. We've seen him do that before. So he's just an absolute stud, and I really think highly of those two. Overall for this defense, I mean, I definitely think it can be solid. Okay. Now the defensive front, they just got to figure out what is the right rotation, who should be on the field on the first 2 downs, who's better on the field on 3rd down situations. They just got to figure out which players they need on the field on any given moment and on any given package. And then I like the combination that you can go with Jordan Brooks and Bobby Wagner as your two main linebackers on the field at all times. And then they just got to figure out that role for Darrell Taylor. And then, like I've already mentioned, my biggest concerns are cornerback group. I can see this cornerback group struggling this year. If injuries start to happen, I think that's where they're going to get picked apart in the air. I mean, we saw that last year. Teams were easily passing all over the Seattle defense. But I think Quandre Diggs being healthy, I think Marquis Blair, not Quandre Diggs being healthy, but Quandre Diggs being there, Marquis Blair being healthy and can be utilized too in this defense, it should be slightly better this year. Overall, it's just a solid defense to me. I think maybe they can crack into the top 15 range if they can just figure out the rotation on the defensive front, and if those guys in the cornerback room can not only stay healthy, but they can elevate their play. Overall, though, for the Seattle team, I just think it's a solid team. I don't think it's like, I mean, how I view Seattle, it's just like, yeah, if you look at like, I guess maybe, I think, I haven't done my Rams preview, but it's like, I think you could, if you look at it on paper, you would probably be like, okay, the Rams roster is better. Okay, the Cardinals roster is better. You can make arguments between the Seattle and the San Francisco roster, depending on how their offense plays out this year in San Fran. So it's like, oh man, I can kind of see this being like the fourth best worst team in this division, because I don't think they're terrible. I just think they're in a very tough division where if they don't come out hot to begin the season like they did last year, I think they could this division is going to eat themselves up alive. Where I could definitely see Seattle sitting on the outside of the playoffs this year if everybody doesn't come to play. If that makes any sense. I think their offense is going to be good. It's always going to be good with Russell Wilson leading the way. On any given moment, he can lead them on a comeback, but my main concern comes with how will this defense look and how will this defense perform week in and week out. Their range to me is so weird. Like, I think Seattle can finish anywhere between like 7-10, all the way to like 11-6. Because I mean, at any given moment, when you have a superstar like Russell Wilson, he can put he's already proven he can put this team on his back and carry them into the playoffs. Now, if they crack into the playoffs, or will they go on a deep postseason run? I'm not sure, but I will never doubt Wilson's talent and the head coaching ability of Pete Carroll to get the best out of his roster. I think they're going to be a strong team. I just wonder if they're going to have enough to survive the NFC West this year. But yeah, that is my team preview for today. I do appreciate you guys tuning in as always. If you watch this whole video, I really appreciate you tuning in. And yeah, again, if you like this video, please hit the like button. If you haven't not subscribed to my channel, please hit that subscribe button. I really appreciate that. I kind of hit a stall period on my subscribers, guys. I would love to get to 100 subscribers by the time I do this. And yes, if you guys could not tell, I was delaying because I did not write down who my next team was in my script, because we had a roundtable show for the Prospect Encyclopedia last night on Jake Ellenbogen's channel on YouTube. Go subscribe to Jake. He's a great dude. And I had to do this script afterwards, which was very late at night, so I was kind of tired when I was working on this thing. And it looks like, yeah, my next team will be the Pittsburgh Steelers. Speaking of the Prospect Encyclopedia, one last push on that, guys. I'm going to push this now at the end of my videos. There's a link on my YouTube page that you can go click. Otherwise, go to prospectencyclopedia.com. That's where you can order the whole PDF for only $15. You can order an individual team PDF for $1. If you want to get a taste of it, we're actually giving out my Buck section for free. There's a free download so you can get an idea what you can get from it. Rob, my boy, put in such great work for this. I'm telling you, go check it out. Go check out all the work of the other writers as well. Again, guys, what this thing is, it's all 32 teams. Every team has a top 22 prospect list. And in order to be in that top 22 prospect list, you have to be from the last 3 NFL draft classes, less than 12 regular season starts. So these are guys range from core special teamers to superstars of the league. You know, for example, like last year, you know, Jags released Leonard Fournette at the end of August. All of a sudden you're like, oh no, who's the Jags running back should I own? Guess what? James Robinson had a profile in last year's edition of the book. You read the profile, I like this guy. I'm going to take a chance on him. Well, guess what? It worked out for the people that did that. I know I was one of them. So yeah, it's a really great book. You could be sitting there, you know, watching a game, and all of a sudden, like, somebody makes a play. You're like, who's number 17? You open up the Colts section. Oh, it's Mike Strawn. Like, it's just stuff like that, guys. It's under the radar players you can learn about. So again, go order that at prospectencyclopedia.com. Other than that, I'm gonna go ahead and head out. I'll be doing my next video on the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'll see you guys when I do that.